to, and then after that will generate some new ideas. And we were founded, like the Film Council movement, with a lot of small organizations that had screenings for members, and would sometimes, show work that you couldn't see elsewhere, sometimes work that was censored, or people brought together in conversation about cinema. So it really makes sense that we would be involved in this Micro-Cinema Summit. The other thing we do, we were founded in the 40s, so right after we were born, Cinema 16 was born, which really did so much to shape cinema culture in Europe. And what we, obviously the micro-cinemas today are doing a similar thing in a vastly different landscape. Our mission as an organization, just to give you the pitch, because we want you to stay involved, is we decided a few years ago that our mission was really to bring the disparate film, video, and electronic arts communities together. So bring together a narrative, documentary, experimental, because they're sort of tribal. And now, looking at this, that regionally, all the boroughs sort of having an organization that has events to sort of foster these connections. And we always have great receptions, so therefore, come to our events, eat your dues and food. That's from Jake Curlin.
Eat your dues, that's great.
Membership is $40 a year, 10 free events. So $5 today. We're trying to keep it a little bit lower, thinking about having as big an audience as we can. I know that there are some other micro-cinema people in the audience.
Our mission is to present and produce documentary art, and we do about 100 events a year. They all take place in a small cinema that seats about 70 and is very focused on creating a dialogue and conversation after the events. We try to always have the artist or a producer or significant academic or critic, someone there to kind of create that environment for discussion. And we really encourage people to participate in the conversation, and very often we have conversations that can last as long as the program itself. So it's a space where we really encourage discussion.
The micro-cinema aspect is much more about engagement. And I hate to use the word community engagement because it's like used so, but I mean that's really what I feel like screenings are about. And but in terms of keeping afloat, it's about, I mean also just any nonprofit, it's, for us, sustainability is about like how small staff could be and how much they can do. So it's like, that's why I'm not just a programmer. I'm like, literally have probably 7 titles. And in in a corporate world, I would be 7 people. And so I think all of us can speak to that. And that's kind of how, that's how nonprofits or any small group kind of thrives, is by working really, really hard and trying not to have a chip on your shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just concur. The micro-cinema is not a moneymaker. It is about community engagement. That is the agenda. That is the goal. That is the model. Thus far, for us, it's a combination of all the things everybody's talked about. Grants, donors, small donors, big donors, membership program, classes, earned income. But definitely the micro-cinema piece of it is not where a lot of the earned income is coming from. Although there is some, depending on the film, depending on the scenario. But it's definitely not lucrative. And I guess at like 350 feet, my understanding of where we're at right now is we broke even for the first time last year, which was tremendous, but we're still kind of month to month. And I think that's our challenge at this point, is getting past that month to month hump and being able to be more sustainable long term and not having to come for the money like every month and kind of struggling with it.
All right, so let's,
I'd just say that, a lot of what we've done here, including like these floors and those walls and everything you see, was done by volunteers.
And the poster, also volunteers.
Yeah.
The posters are for sale for $15 to benefit Broadcast, but really they paid for them, so it may not be such a huge profit. So
it's a really nice poster.
It's a great poster.
Yeah. So, and all these people keep going, and it's actually been, people said, oh, it's, must be really hard to work with volunteers, but if you get good volunteers, it's a community building because it's just amazing.
Yeah, so I want to transition from the hard part to the rich part. As a filmmaker and as a part of this volunteer-run New York Film Video Council, a lot of what filmmaking is collaborative. And in a time when a lot of cinema is viewed online or increasingly sort of privatized, the public space of entering into a cinema and watching something together has always been a sort of powerful community distinction. And I think one of the things that you guys speak to already, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about, is how the micro-cinema, or even a non-traditional distribution cinema, actually, maybe, Christopher, it's not that this is not cinema, that actually cinema is this public thing, you know, and that the micro-cinemas, you know, generate that community experience, again, in a different way. So, if you'd like to speak to that, or maybe just give an illustration of a program you felt was particularly rich in generating that experience? Any of you? Down to poor Christopher doesn't have to go first every time.
Can you narrow in on the question a little bit?
What do you think is most distinctive about the community experience you've created? And having that the cinema experience. You guys talked about panels. I know as someone who goes to Union Jacks a lot, you know, that the community has grown out of it. You know, you've all talked about a little bit of hybridity in terms of trying to expand the definition and expectation of what certain kind of cinema looks like.
I would say on our end, one thing is just, you know, really as like minimal barrier as possible between artist and audience. I think that's something that we've definitely cultivated over time. And I think the intimacy of the space, right, and the intimacy of the micro-cinema does lend to that kind of breaking down of the barrier. And it's something that we, you know, try to engage and exploit as much as possible. But that's one of the benefits of having an intimate space, is that you can get to these kind of discourses that are different from a 500-seat, you know, kind of venue.
Have you seen the community shift in the last few years from having the exposure? When the cinema first started, it was a brand new thing.
That's always a tricky question. I think we do documentary, and it's so friggin' niche that the community, you know, like sometimes it's a pigeon film, and pigeon breeders come and with a screen. Sometimes it's a chicken wings film, and the buffalo wings lovers come. So I find that question, like, we have a sort of parallel core audience, but then there are all these just, which is what I love about documentary, is it's not necessarily about like cinema fans. It's about fans of something. Sometimes it has something to do with film. It has to do with their passion point and their obsession. And they come, and that's why they're there. So it's a kind of shifting fluid, and I think also just doing it in the internet age, there's sort of this, you know, kind of melange that happens where it's a very fluid kind of audience, and it shifts a lot.
But also, I think what's unique about everyone here is that we are tied to physical spaces where everything now is like, you know, these like online venues and like ways of connecting, and everyone is like looking for connection, and we are physical spaces. And I think sometimes when we feel like the underdogs, it's like the big dogs come knocking, being like, hi, we're a big dog, but we don't have a physical space, can we use yours? Like, we get that all the time. And because like you can't, there is something like so refreshing to like go into a space that you've like been before, you like, you know the smell, you know the space, you like know like the people that you're going to see, and it's so much more than just the work itself. And so I feel like the micro-cinema experience is like all about that. That's why there has to be Q&A, that's why there has to be some other type of just like taking, it's not about the film, it's about like how that goes off the screen, literally.
I also think it's, for us, I didn't mention this, but we've always tied Q&As into our events as well. And that discussion has always been part of the process. And to me, that's the place where you stop entertaining and start inspiring. You know, that's the point where you're able to actually connect people with the makers, whether it be, because a lot of times we Skype folks and we can't afford to bring them. But that's the place where you start to kind of encourage people to think differently. It's when they get to participate in the conversation, when they get to kind of think about and talk about how the media impacted them. That's where the difference is. You know, when we hold our events down at AMC, it is not the same experience as doing something at Image Nation Super Cinema or Image Nation when it was the raw space and the brownstone. It's not that intimacy, and it's not that connection, and it's a different level of inspiration.
And I think as people live their lives more and more online, they want this more and more also.
I agree. It's a weird counterintuitive thing where actually I think there's more kind of hunger for what we're doing, because in 1955 it was across the board. There was all kinds of sort of brick and mortar community spaces that you could engage, but this is it's more precious now, and I think we actually benefit from that hunger and that desire to engage people directly in a way that you can online and with your smartphone or whatever.